Right, the little Gale GS210s. Really all I was robbing them for was the tweeter, and I think that's a bit of a waste. I can use something else. So because I'm an insane madman, I'm actually going to do something with these, because whilst the original crossover was dog poo, basically, you know, they're just a chipboard box. The drivers that were inside them are pretty good, actually. We've got this Vifa tweeter, so I've soldered new leads onto this to get rid of those steel wires that were on there, and the woofer as well, I'm pretty sure is made by Vifa too, treated paper cone. They're in really good condition, and if I just use the tweeters for something, these mid-bass drivers are probably just going to knock around for ages. So I thought, let me see if I can do something with them, because I'm sure I can. So I've stripped the vinyl off. It was falling off anyway, so I've just peeled it off. The front is good, so I'm going to wrap these, neatly cut it round here, tidy these up. They want a little bit of filling, won't take long to do. And I've lined the cabinet with polyfill sheet, and actually contact adhesive sprayed on the sides and stuck it in. So that has reduced a lot of the cabinet ringing without bracing. So it's very acoustically dead in there now. It's very lined. So what I'm going to do is put the drivers back into one of these and see what I can do with it, because I'm fairly confident we can turn these into something pretty decent. The covers are okay. They're pretty clean. They don't need reclothing. They're clean enough. I have vacuumed them, but I'll probably give them a quick wipe down as well. Where it was coming loose, I've re-glued the cloth back on. But yeah, these are really good. So again, this would all go to waste if I just robbed the drivers out of them. So the binding cups at the back, these plastic boxes, I've taken out the steel banana plug sockets that were in there, binding posts I should say, and our crossover was just glued onto the back of this, so I'll make a board for it, and then yeah, see what we can do with them. So we'll get cracking with the measurements, and assuming they turn out all right, then all we got to do is tidy up the cabinet, build the crossovers for them, and job done. Right, so these are the raw measurements of the tweeter and woofer in the GS210s, and yeah, they're going to be pretty easy to play with. The tweeter, you can see, is nice and has a smooth roll off naturally. A little peak up there at about 16, which yeah, you kind of often see, and the woofer is smooth as anything. It's got a bit of a rise there just after 1000 hertz, but nothing to be worried about. It got that natural roll off. So yeah, they're not going to be too hard to play with really. The phase on the woofer is pretty consistent up to, what are we looking at? About 8K. We're going to roll it off way before that, before it goes a bit screwy. Distortion, yeah, very clean driver. So yeah, that doped paper cone is good. Okay, let's have a quick look at the tweeter. So phase is a bit all over the place. That might just be baffle step, but I'm probably going to start rolling it off before that, so we can use it in the band that it's pretty smooth in. Here we have a phase change where that lump is, so that's probably to do with the baffle. We'll see how that works out. distortion, a little bit down the bottom here, but we're going to roll it off before that. So yeah, I don't think these will be too difficult to do something with. So the previous crossover was second order on the tweeter, and the woofer just rolled off naturally. So I think given the values on the tweeter, it was probably rolling off really high up. So yeah, let's see if we can make it better than it was. I'm sure we can. I think this could possibly, with those drivers, end up being quite a good little speaker. Right, I kind of knew there was a decent speaker in this little Gale GS210. I'll go through the crossover first, what I've ended up with. On the woofer, I've ended up with a 1.4 millihenry inductor, second order, and a 7 microfarad cap. So just plain second order on the woofer. And then on the tweeter, got 1.5 ohm resistor into a 4.7 microfarad cap. Then I've got a 3.5 0.35 millihenry inductor, so second order. And I've had to build a notch filter for the tweeter, so we've got a 0.05 millihenry inductor and a 2 microfarad cap across the tweeter to pull a big notch down. So the notch, or the big lump, was here. If I shoot a measurement without the notch filter, you'll see what I mean. So we have this huge great lump here. So without it, we have this. So yeah, it's needed. It doesn't really disappear off axis either. In fact, it moves itself down lower frequency, so that's not what we want at all. But yeah, worked out really well. I'll put these measurements up properly, but that's what we've ended up with on axis. Crossover point is around 3K. So yeah, really nice flat response, a nice little dip there where I like it. If we go 15 degrees horizontally, pretty much the same. 30 degrees horizontally, and the tweeter is dropping off, as you can see. And then if we go back to on axis, 10 degrees above the tweeter, we sort of suck out a teeny bit at the crossover point, but if we listen below the tweeter, we are really, really flat. I mean, from 200 hertz up to 15k, we are plus minus 1.5 dB. So yeah, it's turned into quite a good little speaker, really. Right, so the little Gales have had filler on them, so there we go, and that's all been sanded back now, so the cabinets are really nice sharp corners, sharp edges. I've just given the front baffles a quick spray of satin black, and also the rear panels as well, so they're ready to be wrapped. The speaker cloth is pretty good. I'm just going to give that a clean, so I think that's going to be okay. So after completely poo-pooing these, I think we're going to turn them into something, yeah, reasonable. Measurements turned out really well with a new crossover, so I think they're going to be pretty good. Okay, so the little Gale GS210s are getting wrapped in this light oak colour. I've got a load of this, and I got it for a project that, I don't know, never happened, but I think that has turned out with the black pretty well. If this was being so light on a bigger cabinet, I think we'd struggle, but yeah, let's turn it over. If you get the edges, the corners really good. Can you tell that that's not a veneer? I don't know, I like it, it's good. So yeah, happy with these. So one thing that seemed to be missing from the old speaker was a gasket for the woofer for both of them. So I've put one in. I use some neoprene, just like a millimetre thick, because you can sort of stretch it and get a radius on it, so it makes really good gasket material. And I'll do the same for the binding cup at the back. Right, okay, so that one is all back together. I've still got to build the crossovers for them. We've done the design work for that, and I'm just waiting on components. So as soon as they're here, we can build the crossovers, put them back together and have a good listen, because I think we've probably turned these into something pretty decent, really. Because we started with good drivers, just the cabinets wanted a bit of help, which they've had. So yeah, looking forward to listening to these. And the covers have had a bit of a clean up as well. So yeah, I think that's looking pretty good if you ask me. But then I did the work, so I'd be biased. And the back panel has had a paint as well, so we'll get some nice new binding posts in here. I don't think the crossover is going to be big enough to build on the back of this. Sorry, it's going to be too big to build onto the back of this, which is a shame. So I'll probably make a board up and put it in the bottom. But yeah, I think that's turned out pretty sharp. So I've cut the boards for our crossover, and this is what we're going to end up for our GS210s. Reasonably complex? No, not really. So we have a second order circuit on our woofer. We have a second order circuit on our tweeter, but we also have a notch filter on our tweeter. So how we lay these components out is quite important, really. So if you have a think about the circuit layout, it makes it a bit easier. So I'm going to bring my positive into here, so I can pick up the inductor on this side and pick up the resistor for the tweeter. So if we look at the woofer circuit, we'll be going in here through our inductor, out to our woofer, picking up our capacitor, which will go down to ground, and here I'll have the woofer negative and tweeter negative all together. So then if we look at the tweeter circuit, in on our positive again, through our resistor, picking up our capacitor, out to our tweeter, picking up our inductor down to ground. But then we also pick up the inductor on our notch filter and capacitor on our notch filter across the woofer down to ground. So by laying this out, it really simplifies how we point to point solder everything at the back. Makes it really easy. So yeah, otherwise you end up with jumper wires all over the place, and to keep the signal path as clean as you can, you want to just point to point solder everything. So that's what we've ended up with. So I'll glue the other one together, and yeah, next we'll be fitting them. So I'm using components that I've already got in stock, which have come out of other things. Apart from the capacitors and the resistors, they're all new. But the inductors, yeah, I've got so many of them, and I'm going to start winding my own from now on, so they'll look like this, all cable tied together. So I think this is something I'm going to offer as a kit. I'm going to put these boards on my eBay page and yeah, offer them for sale. It will be simple to fit these, connect your drivers into them, and because the speaker itself is good, the box wants a little bit of deadening and some more dampening inside, but the drivers are good. It's just let down by a horrifically cheap crossover. So this will absolutely transform them. And when I've finished this, assuming everything turns out well, I will put some sound clips up as well, so you can get some sort of idea. So I'm using a 6 and a 1 to make up a 7 here. That's good. We got 4.7. Our little 0.35 millihenry inductor down to ground here. Right, and then our notch filter. So we've got a 0.05 millihenry, so really teeny tiny value. But then it's notching down from, like, I think it was 13k to 15, something like that, so really high up. Right, so there we go. Simple as that. Once you have it laid out, it's pretty straightforward really. So time to solder it all together and wang it in there.